don't forget, we have the Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. If you guys are on Twitter, follow us at Livestreams1. Instagram, follow us at Livestreams. Facebook, follow us at Livestreams. Or be our friend on Livestreams, I guess I should say. I've already put up a couple of posts on the Facebook, so go on there and check them out.
All right. Looks like I'm up. Feel free to text or write to me and any questions you may have, and it'll be anonymous, and we will direct them to Tay or whoever needs to answer your question. What happened to my screen? Anyway, you can email or text, and I'll get them both. The number should be also on your cards in front in your little packet of information. Also, there are little cards that you can write, so you don't have to have a technical device to get me questions. You can write a question on there, and then we'll have somebody come around and collect them through the evening, and they'll bring them up to me, and I'll read them for you. So you can do, there it is, interact at livestreamsonline.net or 714-367-6113 or on the table. And also, Tay has a new devotion out, Losing a Loved One. It was based on last month's series. And so he has put out a devotion. It's seven devotions. And then at the very back, there's memorials and tributes of people that are in our congregation that have lost a loved one. And it's either dedicated or, you know, how they got over the loss and whatnot. So it's a really great one. So pick it up.
Well, Chris has already mentioned the prayer time after the program tonight, but let me just say one thing too. If I believe Dorothy Sigrid said that we have now over 100 people signed up for the prayer chain. So there's one ministry that everybody in this church can be involved in, and that's a prayer ministry. So if you really want to be active and involved in that, talk to Dorothy, get on her list, and then come over there right after this program, and then we'll pray for those prayer requests and all that you put in the mailbox. Thank you.
All right.
And now, let's welcome Pastor Tay to the hot seat.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking at the clock because at 7:05 exactly, that's in about, 6 minutes, we have a very special guest. So I got to make this short and sweet. We've got a lot of important things to do tonight, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. Okay, he's already calling in. So, okay.
I guess I should want to see you because you said you lost a bunch of weight, and I haven't seen that.
I did. Can you see me?
No, it's not. I just see a stick figure, so that's all. Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Is that a compliment?
That's always showing me just this kind of stick figure guy.
All right, I don't know, but I'm looking at you, and you're on the screen, and yeah, you did lose a bunch of weight. So congratulations to you on losing that weight. And I was just very excited when I saw a recent picture of you, because I remember you and I did a few conferences together here and there, and you looked a little bit heftier back at those conferences. And you lost a bunch of weight. Tell me how much you lost.
About 50 pounds.
50 pounds. Nice. Congratulations to you. And tell me, what prompted you to lose this weight?
Yeah, I almost feel like when you're congratulating me, I should speak. I feel like when somebody congratulates me for losing weight, it's like in Acts where people heard Herod and said the voice of a God and not a man, and he got struck dead.
Okay.
That only by the grace of God.
All right.
I've always known that if you exercise harder and eat less, you'll lose weight. And if you eat too much and don't exercise very hard, you'll gain weight. The problem wasn't knowing, the problem was in the doing. And I had several years where I just kind of was gradually inching up, became kind of an expert in failure, many attempts to change, which failed. And I mean, I can tell you the things the Lord used to help me, but ultimately it was His grace that He enabled me to do what I knew I should have done. And I think it's illustrative of almost all the change in which we want to engage as believers, that we can know the right thing to do. And my understanding is change is found in what God has done for us in Christ. But there's also a sense in which he sees fit to help us at certain points in time, and I'm very thankful.
Great, great. Listen, I mean, that was my original plan to have you for like 30 minutes or longer, but you are right in the middle of an elders meeting tonight, and you pulled out and to spend about 10 minutes with us. I really appreciate it. So I know that time is very precious here. And so I apologize. We got to kind of cut to the chase. And I want to ask you a few questions based on some of the work that you've done, thinking in this area. And the first question I wanted to ask you is, in your teaching, you connect all this, I guess, the abuse of the body, the bad eating, the lack of exercise, or whatever you want to call it, to the sixth commandment. And a lot of people don't make that connection, so I thought that was a very interesting one. Can you tell us the sixth commandment and tell me how you make that connection?
Right. Well, you're not supposed, you shall not murder. And, somebody can commit suicide, and that's an immediate self-murder. But especially, a lot of this happened when I turned 50, and I go to the doctor, and my cholesterol's up, my blood pressure's up, and you don't have to have a medical degree from Harvard to realize that that could lead to a premature death and less time of usefulness to the Lord. And as our body belongs to God, we're not at liberty to abuse it or do things that would lead to premature death because of our sinful behavior.
All right, so Jim, we're not just talking about food then or exercise, but we could even add, let's say, smoking to the list, right? Because we're talking about the broader application of the sixth commandment as far as the preservation of life. Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put a list and say that you can't have fried foods or you could never smoke a cigar, but I think that whatever is not of faith is sin, Romans 14:23. And so we should be living a lifestyle where we're taking care of the body that God gave us, that was purchased by the blood of Christ. And behavior which is harmful to the body or extremely risky would be, it seems like it's an implicit violation of the sixth commandment. So, yeah, I mean, I think many people would draw the conclusion you just made.
All right, very good. I also thought it was interesting in your teaching that you took it beyond just a personal endeavor. A lot of people look at health and fitness as just kind of a personal thing, but you connected it to sins against other people. For example, your spouse, that your lack of health and what have you could actually be a sin against your spouse. What did you mean by that?
Right. Well, 1 Corinthians 7 says that our bodies belong, my body belongs to my wife, her body belongs to me, and so and we're supposed to be fulfilling each other sexually. We're supposed to also live long and take care of each other and fulfill our marriage vows. And so if I'm not taking care of myself, that's affecting her in those ways, perhaps having to wheel me around or spend time in the hospital or whatever would result. So part of loving her is taking care of myself. And I also just want to mention, in terms of my wife and actually the people of God, that how gracious people were to me when I was heavy. And I'm thankful that my acceptance with God is not based upon what I weigh, and even that gospel grace was reflected in my wife and in the church, who did not condemn or judge me when I was not doing very well. But it's certain, like I said, in answer to your question, 1 Corinthians 7 would be a big part of that in terms of my wife.
All right, that's good to hear. Also, in your teaching, you talked about how this particular thing is also connected to other sins as well. I guess we're talking right now about maybe overeating or gluttony. I mean, we haven't kind of designated this topic when we began this conversation.
Right.
But this whole unhealthy lifestyle, overeating, what have you, gluttony, for example, the biblical term, you see it connected to other sins as well. How do you see that?
Well, in Proverbs, it talks about people who are gluttons and drunkards, and it's turning to something. God has given food as a gift, even one to be enjoyed. We're going to eat in the new heavens and new earth, apparently, and so food is not bad. But when food becomes idolatrous, looking to food for comfort when we should look to God, eating much more than is healthy because we're trying to, squeeze all the pleasure we can out of it. That's where I think it falls into idolatry. This may relate to something you'll say later, but I'll bring it up now while I'm thinking of it.
Well, I mean, feel free to transition into that whole thing about idolatry. That was my next question. How is all this connected to idolatry?
Right. Well, I mean, one way food can be connected to idolatry is I'm feeling sad, lonely, depressed. And actually, in my case, I think a factor during the years in which I was gaining weight is we had real struggles with our adult kids, young adult kids, and struggling with being discouraged. And food could be turned to for comfort when we should be turning to God for comfort. But there's actually on the other end, like now I'm running a lot, I run a few marathons, and fitness can be an idolatry as much as food can be an idolatry in terms of I must be thin, I've got to exercise every day, I don't care if the whole family has to wait for me. Either end, it's making an idol of our bodies, either stuffing it full of food or looking good in the gym or having to get our exercise in, instead of subordinating all of this to the Lord. And, I want to eat to please God. I want to exercise to please God. And one thing that I've thought of too is like you can look at the Biggest Loser TV show, and there are people who lose weight who aren't doing it. And say, well, how do they aren't doing it the same reason I do it. They're doing it, again, they replace food idolatry with beauty idolatry so they can be sexually attractive or something. God is not glorified in that. And for us, we want to eat, whatever we do, eat, drink, exercise, is to the glory of God.
That's right. 1 Corinthians 10:31 right there.
Right.
All right, that's good stuff. I know you got to go. The 10 minutes are up, but we're very curious as to once you set your mind to do this, you honor God with your body, 1 Corinthians 6 there. What did you do? I mean, what kinds of things did you do? Was it just eating right, exercising? What was your plan?
Right. My own view would be I wanted to eat like I should eat for the rest of my life rather than to, eat grass for 3 months and then be skinny and then go back to eating chicken fried steak and mountains of potatoes. And I don't have, some people may have a metabolism, and that's, again, I think we need to be very careful. I think I've met people who seem to me to eat very carefully and well, and their body just isn't processing it, and they maybe appear to be overweight, and I don't want to judge them. In my case, it wasn't my metabolism. I just ate too much. And just eating in moderation. It's not, we can't enjoy the good things God has given us. That's in Timothy. We can enjoy to the glory of God in moderation. And then for me, exercise, especially running, just, and really kind of, I guess in the running, even making myself do things that were comfortable, where, went from where I couldn't run a mile or maybe even 100 yards without being overwhelmingly exhausted to gradually working up to running 10Ks and half marathon and marathon. And the thousands of calories you burn with that are very beneficial to losing weight. The danger is, like right now, I had a shoulder surgery. I'm not allowed to run.
Oh, is that what that strap is there? Okay.
That's what I've got that on there. Yeah,
I see. All right.
Rotator cuff surgery the other day.
All right, we won't make you demonstrate any exercises then. All right.
No, I won't do. Well, yeah, I'm not allowed to run for a little while, but anyway, that's the means that God saw fit to use, for which I'm very thankful, even for the health to be able to run. But it's all to His glory, and I'm like Peter walking on water. That it's something I have no capability of doing. God, by His grace, having made me a new creature in Christ, I'm not a slave to food. I've already been set free, and as my eyes are on Christ and what He's done for me and who I am being united with Him in His death and resurrection, I don't have to give in to those temptations. But if I look away, I'll sink as fast as the next guy.
All right. I appreciate all that, Jim, your emphasis on God's grace. You bring the gospel in as the larger backdrop to all of this, and you do understand this isn't just health and fitness, but this is to honor God with our bodies. And so I appreciate all of your emphasis there. God be with you. We appreciate you sneaking out of the elders meeting. Get back in there. All right, get back in there, and God be with your church and your ministry. And you're also traveling next week. Where are you going?
We're going to the Middle East for a few weeks. In the 80s, we lived in Saudi Arabia, where I was a tent-making pastor of an underground church, and we're going to another country in the Middle East where there's a little more freedom to work with a congregation of about 500 people who don't have a full-time pastor, and do some preaching and training there. My wife is also going to be doing some counseling and teaching ladies, and then also do some training in Germany on the way back. So we're excited about that.
Great, great. Well, traveling mercies to you, and thank you so much for giving us the time tonight. Everyone, that's Dr. Jim Neuheiser. Bye-bye, Jim. Thank you.
Bye.
We'll see you later. All right. Well, that totally messed up my schedule. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to fast forward. Ooh. No, I got to move up a few more screens. Fast forward. I had some good, fun stuff to show you, but we're just going to jump right in. We're doing a series called Renew Your Life, and those are the topics. That's our itinerary. Remember, I showed you that last week, and we just got done talking to Dr. Jim Neuheiser. His church is in Poway, in San Diego, and he has a counseling ministry down there. And so he's a good man. We've done conferences up and down California together. And so anyway, it was good to have him talk about the second topic there, the overeating, the gluttony. He didn't mention the undereating. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But anyway, last week we started this series with the biblical principles of the body. And there we confirmed that God made our bodies, and then we're called to take care of our bodies. And so we talked about it, and you saw Dr. Jim tonight emphasize how we need to take care of our bodies, and it's to honor God with it. Did you see how he brought in 1 Corinthians 10:31, eat or drink due to the glory of God? And so all of that was where he was going. And so that's the question that hangs over this whole series. How do we honor God with our bodies? That's where we left off, quoting 1 Corinthians 6, that our bodies are a temple to God. We were bought with a price, and he ends in 1 Corinthians 6 there. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Well, how do you do that? That's what this series is about. And so we're going to continue to crank this out. We already got started. The schedule's kind of messed up tonight, but we're going to talk about food sins. Well, we already did that with Dr. Jim there. But I need to just mention this, that something he didn't mention, and that is way back in creation, when God created the heavens and the earth, God gave a command. You know which command I'm thinking about? It's about subduing the earth to his glory, but also to our health. He said, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and over every living creature that moves on the ground. This passage has been called the creation mandate. Now, the creation mandate involves lots of things like cultural, economic endeavors, agricultural developments, but it also involves food and drink as well. So God is calling us to manage the things in our lives, in our society, take care of the earth. And as far as the creation mandate is concerned for our bodies, we're talking about food and drink, okay? We're supposed to take care of ourselves in that way. Now, you don't have to be a vegetarian or a vegan. Meat lovers are welcome, all right, to this series. But it's about managing all that God has given us to our health, which then is translated into his glory. Again, you take care of the earth. That's what we got. We have to do that. But we have to manage it, master it, and all the things that he has given to us. If we don't do that, that would be called mismanagement. If we mismanage and do all that, well, that's when sin happens. So we're talking about food sins tonight, and we got a little bit ahead of ourselves there with Dr. Jim. But food sins tonight is, I'm going to organize it into two broad categories, over and under. Overeating, undereating, okay? And so Dr. Jim tonight talked about the overeating and what it can do. Now, both can destroy the body, the over and the under. And so we already got started talking about that, the sin of overeating there. It is definitely a violation of the creation mandate because God gave us the earth. And next week, we're going to really get into more specifics about the creation mandate and the good things that God has given to us. But if you abuse that by overeating, and man, is it easy to do that, right? It's easy to just, you sit down, you didn't plan, and next thing you know, you ate way too many donuts. You know what I'm talking about? That happens to all of us. And so overeating is just way too easy in this country. And, you sit down, and next thing you know, you're just like eating like crazy. You go to those all-you-can-eat places and what have you, and you're just stuffing your face, and then what do? You laugh, and you make a big joke out of it, and everybody's poking your tummy, and it just becomes one big, laugh session. But tonight, we got to recognize there's something very serious about this, because it's not as simple as, I didn't plan to eat that much and then roll out the door. But there are also people that actually plan to eat. Have you ever met people that plan to have a big meal? They go out of their way to plan. I met people like that, who they know tonight's the night, and they actually make plans to eat a ton of food. And if the food then kind of becomes the main event, wow. Are you addicted to food? Are you a slave to food? Part of the overeating process can lead to you being addicted to certain kinds of food. Are you a creature of habit? You got to have certain kinds of foods. What is it? All right, confess to yourself tonight. What is it? Coffee? You don't have to say it out loud. Coffee, what is it? Ice cream? What do you have to have? Have you noticed, and we'll talk a little bit more about this next week, that most of the things that we're addicted to, like we got to have it, or if you don't, you get a headache? Have you ever had that experience? You don't eat it, and then you're getting a headache. You're craving it so much. Have you noticed? It's usually something that's processed. It's not natural. Have you ever met anybody addicted to lettuce? You just never met anybody addicted to lettuce, right? That's not going to happen, right? But soda, oh man. You take kids to summer camp. I've done summer camps in the past. You take kids to summer camp, they don't serve sodas there. And you can see right away, they start whining. They're really having a hard time because they haven't had soda for a whole day. All right? So you start craving it, or you're sitting in worship. Did this ever happen to you? You're sitting in worship and you can smell the coffee. You know what I mean? You can smell the coffee. You can't wait to have the next cup. So here comes a pop quiz. Okay, if you're like that, where you gotta have it, you're addicted to it, and now it's out of control, what is the biblical term for overeating and the food just has you in its grasp? What's the biblical term for that? Gluttony. Okay? And so that's what we did with Dr. Jim Neuheiser, okay? That's what he looked like back in seminary, all right? 50 pounds. I thought he only lost, when I saw his picture, because I've done a lot of conferences with Dr. Jim. He's actually a great counselor. He's written a lot. You saw, actually, this is public, so I'm not really gossiping about him. His son, I think, became a Buddhist. And so when he was talking about comfort foods and stuff, I know exactly what he's talking about because he shared it at a conference that he and I did together on parenting. And he was so distressed. We're talking about his son was brilliant, but I think he became a Buddhist. And he was just so distressed, the fact that he raised him in a Christian home, but anyway, he turned to food for comfort. So that's what he was referring to. And he wrote a book about that. If you're taking notes, it's called When Good Kids Make Bad Decisions. And it's about what he did when his son, converted out of Christianity. So anyway, that's what we did. We talked with Dr. Jim, and he talked about all of those things. But did you pick up towards the end what he said about judging and what have you, and about visuals and things like that? I want to confirm, based on everything he talked about with the overeating and the gluttonous behaviors and so forth, let's confirm that even a skinny person can be a glutton, right? I know a bunch of skinny people where food is out of control. And so this isn't about just being overweight or looking fat, okay? We're not here tonight just judging overweight-looking people. This is about a sinful behavior, and skinny people can be gluttons too. I mean, they just don't look the part, right? Because they got that super fast NASCAR metabolism, right? They can eat anything, and they don't look that part. And Jim confessed that, he'll eat a little bit, and then he gains the weight. And I'm kind of like that, too. Hey, I can gain 20 pounds by next week. Honestly, I can. And so it's just how my body is. I got a predisposition towards getting fat. And Jim was talking about how he was like that, too. Let's also confirm the other side, and that is, if you're overweight, that doesn't automatically make you a glutton. You know overweight people who are not gluttons? So there might be medical conditions and so forth. You might have a thyroid problem, or you might have a certain body disposition where you don't eat that much, but you're just getting fat. Okay, we'll talk about what we're going to do in the future lessons and all. So let's confirm tonight, this isn't about body types, okay? God created all different types of bodies. And somewhere in there are variations of that. But I'm definitely not the guy on the left, okay? And so God created all different things. So we're not talking about body types tonight. We're talking about food sins. And the first category is overeating, okay? We're running out of time. Looking at the clock. The next category is the undereating. And undereating is very important to talk about. Let's state the not so obvious. And here's the not so obvious. Undereating is also a sin. Okay? Careful. A lot of people just stereotype and say overeating is a sin. Undereating is also a sin too, because you're abusing your body just as much. What Dr. Jim said about the sixth commandment, about do not murder, and the broader application of preserving the body, hey, if you don't eat, you're hurting your body. And so the undereating is a serious problem too. It's just not as obvious, because if somebody is not eating, that person comes across as what? Self-controlled, right? And disciplined, or, just more mature or whatever, civilized, whatever. And so it's very easy to not be concerned about that, but hey, this is also a violation of the creation mandate. You have to manage food and manage drink to your health, which is then to God's glory. And so not eating enough, that's bad too. Okay, let's confirm that tonight. So don't go crazy with your diets now. This series is not to inspire you to go on crash diets. I'm going to talk more about that next week. I do not want you to go on crash diets and severely limit your calorie intake, because that would be a very big mistake. If you do that, that also is a violation again of the, what number commandment was that? The sixth commandment, okay? So that's a very important thing to do. So going on crash diets, let me tell you something, because I kind of did that last year. I started restricting my calories, and I was making some huge progress. I mean, like in the middle of last year, I started dropping weight like crazy because I was on an online calorie counter. Wow, does that work? And let me tell you something. Just because it works doesn't mean you end up being healthy. Because I started dropping weight, and people started saying, hey, skinny. And I started feeling really good about that. But you know what? One day my wife said, you look emaciated, okay? Something doesn't look right. Let me tell you something. Medically or scientifically, what happens is if you restrict your calories, your body kind of goes into emergency mode, and it immediately starts eating your muscle, because that's the easiest thing to burn. And so as you're burning muscle, you become emaciated. You start shrinking. You think you're burning fat. You are not burning fat. Your body is smarter than you. Your body will preserve that fat, and you start burning the muscle. And what happens is I started dropping like 4 sizes in my jacket. All my sports jackets, if you see me, I started going like this. But in my mind, I thought I was doing something good. That's the crazy part of it. Usually undereaters are people who have mental, maybe that sounds like you're crazy, but you know what I mean? But it's kind of like, there's so much going on up here. You think that the goal is just to be skinny. And so you start dropping weight and people calling you skinny, and you think you've achieved the goal. And I'm saying, that's not the goal. This is about being healthy. This is not about being skinny. Pop quiz. Who's that person? Anybody recognize her? That's Karen Carpenter from the Carpenters. Remember how famous they were back in the 70s and 80s? 26 years ago, okay, what happened to her 26 years ago? She died of anorexia. And so this is actually a healthy picture of her. And I didn't want to put up a picture of her being anorexic because that's just way too disturbing. But when she died, I mean, she was just skin and bone. But my point in bringing this up is when she started starving herself, her body started burning the muscle, not the fat. And so when she died with a 40% fat composition. Okay? So technically, how crazy is this? She was fat. And so right now, remember what I said last week? I haven't weighed myself in a month because I got to get that weight out of that scale. Like it just defines who I am, but it's not supposed to be that way. You got to focus on health. This series is not about you just looking skinny, okay? So it's very important that you understand that. So everybody, look at me. Now look at the screen. I'm going to put up something that is very, very important for this series. Take a look. There is no biblical command to be skinny. There is none. Not in the Bible. Read it from cover to cover. There is no biblical command to be skinny. All right? Skinniness is not next to godliness. All right? Write that down. Skinniness is not next to godliness. I made that up. All right? So you got to understand this is not a series about being skinny. You know, I was on the treadmill last night at the gym, and somebody said, "Hey, skinny." And I'm like, you know what? Now I'm a little wiser. Last year, I was obsessed with being skinny. But now I think I have a clear Christian perspective on this. This isn't about being skinny. This is about Christian health and about giving your bodies to God and giving Him glory. It's about eating right in a way that you're more concerned, listen, you are more concerned about what God has to say about your body than what the world has to say. All right? And that's the conviction you have to come to at the end of this series. This is about giving God glory and pleasing Him, not the world. And so let me give you a couple verses there. Here's a verse, okay? It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for men. So that passage in Colossians 3 is about pleasing the Lord and not pleasing men. In fact, that reminds me of a passage in the Old Testament when the prophet Samuel wanted to anoint a king. I mean, have you seen studies, you know, all kings and presidents and leaders are tall and big and good looking and what have you. And back then in the Old Testament, hey, Saul was a big, tall, handsome looking guy. And Samuel's looking for the next king of Israel. And God said, don't look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God sees not as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Okay? So, that's what this series is about. It's about fitness and health. Health and fitness to the glory of God. And so we got to understand that that's what this is about. And so remember last week, I said 1 Corinthians chapter 6, that passage also comes out in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. But here it's a little more amplified where at the tail end, take a look, it says, you are not your own. Look at the bottom of the screen. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. This isn't about getting into your skinny jeans, all right? This isn't about your YOLO polka dot bikini. This is about giving your bodies to the glory of God. And this series is not over. We got so much more to talk about related to this, because tonight was all about food sins. Next week you don't want to miss, because I'm going to outline the positive biblical principles on how we should eat food. But tonight we confirm that we can sin in all kinds of ways with food and drink. And so we need to end tonight by saying, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31. And with that, I heard an amen out there. That's great. So, in fact, last week, after the event, so many of you came up to me and shared your testimonies. A bunch of you guys, you guys are getting your life right, and I'm just so encouraged by that. You may not text in or post on Facebook, but we put little pieces of paper on your table. Go ahead and write those testimonies. Or go ahead and write down that you are going to participate in the 5K. And all of those good things, because we are getting ready to put into practice the stuff that we are talking about. But let's interact for a couple minutes. If you guys have anything you want to say or what have you, what do you have?
We have some pretty cool a couple testimonies here. This one we actually received, I believe, last week. It says, I suffered from migraine and depression. I was on meds for both. In June of last year, I decided I've had enough of feeling poor. I started eating healthy, smaller portions, walking, doing cardio, and then, after the ... I've lost 57 pounds. I'm off of all medication, and I'm feeling wonderful.
Wow. Somebody
amazing?
out there.
Whoever
That's somebody
that
out
is.
there. Awesome. Congratulations.
That is
you.
amazing. Blessings to you for that. And then we have another one here, too. Let's see. This person had an eating disorder for 15 years. It says it was hidden from their family in their late 30s. And then it says the intervention by a sister in Christ and prayer helped.
Great.
So
Great.
keep
All
up
right.
that good work.
Okay, so prayer is
God is
involved in that
amazing.
because prayer is our expression and dependence upon God. And so appreciate that Christian perspective to eating disorders because, like I said, when you do the undereating, that's going to lead to all kinds of mental machinations, with whether it's anorexia, bulimia, or the worst of the worst, the body dysmorphic disorder. That is like the worst of the worst. So all of these crazy stuff going on. David.
Yeah, Pastor Tay, you and Pastor Jim mentioned a number of words. You talked about idols, that overeating and over-exercising both could be that.
Yeah.
You talked about sins of food or food sins. And I started thinking about, what did Paul say? I think it's in 1 Corinthians 5 or 6, about a criteria that he used. And he said what? All things are lawful, but all things are not profitable. All things are lawful, but I will be mastered or made a slave of by none.
Yeah.
And then he brought what you're talking about. He says, what? Food's for the stomach, stomach's for food, but God's going to get rid of all of them.
All right.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's pretty temporary.
Good job. That's good stuff. And Paul had a lot to say about sin and how it dominates us and so forth. Romans 6 and other places that we could easily bring in if we had more time. So all of those things. And also, real quick, 10 seconds. A lot of you were praying for me last year because I had massive headaches. I mean, right around this time, my body was shut down because I couldn't even think straight. And all of those things are gone too, I'm on no medications at all. I just do a little massaging of the neck. But beyond that, there's just so many health benefits that come and how you can then use your body to the glory of God. Well, next week we'll talk about the positive principles. You don't want to miss that, on how you can, what the Bible says about food. The biblical principles of positive eating and health. And it's great. We've got people here that have lost 50 pounds. Dr. Jim lost 50 pounds. I've lost about 50. I want to also say, for any woman that has lost over 20 pounds, that's better than any man that's lost 50. Because it is so much harder for women to lose because their bodies are more complicated. So Tricia, when you lost 30-some pounds, congratulations to you. It is an incredible accomplishment, much more than a guy losing 50 pounds. But next week, I'm going to introduce you to somebody. I won't tell you that person's name, okay? You're going to have to come out and see this person lost, in our church, over 80 pounds, okay? And this person did it through proper eating and exercise. And so I'm going to talk to her as we talk about the positive principles of that. But tonight, before we go to the prayer meeting, I want to remind you that we're going to put into practice what we are talking about here with a 5K run. Notice the date has changed. We did that because the junior high, they're going on a retreat, and so we know that they're really excited about the run. We had to push it back, and that's the reason why. So the new date is February 10th. It was announced last Sunday. Please mark your calendars. We have a bunch of people that are planning to. Registration begins next week. We are busy mapping out the course, but you guys need to get busy training, okay? So you can run, jog, walk, push your stroller, crawl, roll, whichever way. We got photographers coming. We've got big donations coming in. We are very, very excited that we can do this to God's glory. So we're excited about that day again. It is a fundraiser for Covenant Christian School, their health and fitness. Now, they can't use it to anything else, all right? They're not going to use it to pave the sidewalk or anything. This is for the health and fitness program of the school, okay? So that's it. Go ahead and write down your comments and bring them in, and we'll read them next week. But go to the prayer meeting, would you? We'll see you guys. Bye-bye.